The Emerald Knight, Chapter 8. My sword talks to me, Quinn said, staring out over the pond. It turned out that the boy's name was Aze, and he was currently packing the bowl of a pipe from a sweet-smelling plant that he carried around in a small sack in his bag. The horses were nearby, grazing, and the boys were more or less hidden in some bushes, which gave Clint some sort of indication that they were about to do something that they weren't supposed to do. You do this thing, Ace told him as his nimble fingers crumbled the plant into small pieces and placed them in the bowl, where you say nothing for a long time and then say some real fucked up shit and just sit there like it's self explanatory and common. It tells me to kill you, Clem went on, looking at some ducks who were setting on the pond, and everyone else who bunks with us. Whoa, Ace said in response. Mostly in my dreams, Clint continued. It says that it likes it. The blood, the carnage, I don't know. It's not very nice. It calls me master. He paused, watching as they stuck their heads underwater and foraged around. I don't think it believes it, though, because it doesn't listen to me. When I tell it to be quiet, it doesn't listen. It tells me that it's trying to guide me. It says that I shouldn't be here, that this is below me. It's fucked up. Aziz struck a match and held it to the bowl he had packed. The smell of the sweet weed and the burned matchstick filled the area, and Clint continued to stare at the ducks. Aziz held the pipe to him and poked him in the arm. Hit this, he said in a voice that sounded as if it were afraid to exhale. Clint took the pipe, pressed it to his lips, and breathed in. He immediately almost threw it down as his body was overcome with convulsions. Ace took it from him and rubbed his back as Clint held one hand to his chest and dug in the dirt with the other. His eyes shot to the face of the boy he thought must be trying to kill him. I mean, Ace shrugged. It's poison. You kind of have to force your body to take it. Try again, and try to hold it. Clint nodded and took the pipe back. Now that he knew it was coming, it was easier to fight the urge to expel whatever he had just put inside himself. He handed it back and managed to keep it down for a few seconds before the coughing fit overtook him. So, Ace said as he inhaled, do you listen to it? No, Clint replied, leaning forward to spit a wad of phlegm that had apparently been dislodged in the fit. I wonder why it does that, Ace asked, holding the pipe out for him, and Clint took it. He watched in amazement as Ace said, Hey, watch this. He parted his lips and blew little rings of smoke. Clint rolled his eyes and took another long drag. The world around him was beginning to feel fuzzy around the edges. This is dulling your senses, master. Good. You are a warrior. Shut up, he said out loud, and Ace gave him a look that said, well, fuck you too. So he went on, I'm sorry, not you. I didn't mean to say that. Okay. Ace giggled and took the pipe back. Hey, listen, some of us are going out this weekend to the tavern in town. You should come with me. You should come with us. I can't, Clint explained as he watched the embers in the bowl light up when Ace inhaled. Come on, Ace handed the pipe back. It might give you some incentive not to kill us in our sleep. No, not because I don't want to. I spend my weekends at the castle. I have to take classes that other people don't take with royal tutors about, like, how to act for fancy people, so I don't look like an idiot, Clint explained, then took another drag, slowly as he had seen Ace do. Etiquette, Ace told him, exhaling, is what that's called. Clint shrugged and handed him back the pipe. Ace looked at it, then dumped it into the grass, flicking it until it was empty. He went back to the little pieces of plant laid out on his handkerchief and began to pick them apart again. Does that last all day? He asked. No. Clint watched him with interest as the world around him became number and number. Just until nightfall. You could still go. Ace began to put little pieces he had made into the pipe. I can't. I'd spend the rest of my time with Xandra, Clint explained, picking up a piece of grass and tearing it into shreds. You spend your nights with the Queen? Ace looked up, but Clint didn't meet his eyes. Yes, but you're not banging her. No. Yet. Ace pressed the plant matter down and reached for the box of matches. What? Clint asked, finally looking at him. Dude, she is obviously grooming you. People think that Xandra is just like this poor little rich kid, dead parents, advisors running her kingdom. They're gonna marry her off to some older king from one of the other elven kingdoms and put a regent king in place. It's gonna be you. Clint stared at him, trying to process the sheer volume of stupidity that had just come out of his mouth. He found that he couldn't, so he tried to muster up anything that would convey his repulsion, and finally just settled on the word, no. The other option, Ace went on as he struck a match, is that she's thinking about her bloodline. Royalty is obsessed with that shit. She's the only Ural left alive. She's gonna have to produce an heir, like, as soon as she can. He took a hit, and Clem waited patiently for him to continue. He took the pipe when Ace handed it to him and inhaled. So, Ace went on, exhaling a cloud of smoke, she's gonna want your dick. Clint did throw the pipe down this time, as the coughing fit overtook him. Dude, what the hell? Ace darted from the bushes and grabbed it, then came storming back. Burn the whole goddamn training grounds down! I'm dying! Clint tried to tell him between coughs, and moved so that he was on his hands and knees, trying to inhale the scent of the grass and the pond, trying to get his lungs to function properly. He felt a weight on his back as the sword clanked with every rattle, and Ace's face softened as he sat back down beside him. You're not dying, he explained. You lost your hit. I'm dying, Clint said again and glared at him. You're poisoning me. I should... His left hand flailed of its own accord and landed on the hilt of the sword strapped to his back. Clint. Ace scooted back and threw up both hands in a gesture of submission. Calm down. It's fine. We're fine. Everything is okay. You stop coughing. Stopped. Clint started and pulled his hand back. He spent far longer staring at it than he should have. The edges glowed when he moved. A faint, wispy streak the color of his gloves stayed behind. Dude, Ace laughed, striking another match to retrieve what he had picked up. You're so high. Take another hit. I'm sorry. Clint stared and scooted back closer to him. I didn't mean what I said. I'm sorry. You're not gonna cry, are you? Ace asked, not unkindly. No, I'm just gonna sit here a minute. Clint replied, took the pipe, and inhaled. What were you saying? Maybe we better not talk about it. Ace took it back when Clint offered, dumped the ashes, and started packing yet again. How much of that do you have? Clint asked. Dude, a lot. My parents grow it on our farm, Ace replied. It's a good cash crop, and we live way out in the outskirts. My mom sends it in care packages. Clint was 10 years old, and the wheat was on fire. Burning plants. That's nice, he said, and added, I'm fine. Well, I was saying, Aziz went on, that the legend says that only people in the hero's bloodline can wield that sword. So if they're not training you to be king in Xander's absence, they're training you to be her husband. She wants that hero blood in her kids. Never mind, Clint said, pressing a hand to his chest. I think I was right. I'm dying. Will you relax? Ace asked, rolling his eyes. My heart is beating so fast. Clint closed his eyes and leaned against the bush. Clint! Clint opened his eyes to see Ace's smiling face holding the pipe out to him. The scent of the burnt match filled the air. His voice seemed to be underwater when he said, Smoke this. He tried to take it, but his arm seemed to float upward of its own accord, so he shook his head. Ace laughed and held it to his lips, so Clint inhaled and felt himself sliding lower and lower until he was almost lying on the ground. Ace had fallen silent behind him, and for a few long minutes that took hours to pass, they stared at the lake without seeing it. I wish I could take this fucking sword off, Clint finally said without moving. Take it off, Ace suggested. Clint tried to do that and quickly gave up. He realized that no matter how much he wanted to, it just didn't seem like the effort he would have to expend would be worth it. I can't, he explained. Here, I'll do it, Ace offered. Neither of them moved. Somewhere in the distance, a bird song rang out. They both burst out laughing at the absurdity of their situation at the same time. Clem believed that he had started it because he actually had something to laugh about, but Aes would have argued with him. Regardless, Clem rolled onto his stomach trying to contain it, and Aes began to pack up his pouch. "You fucking want me to be king," Clint said in gasps, laughter rocking his frame so hard he couldn't draw breath. "My dumbass! You couldn't eat an apple," Ace agreed and spilled the contents of his bag, which he had opened to put the sack inside. "Because I picked the sword out of the ground? We're all gonna die." Clint convulsed with the absurdity of it. "Fucking etiquette classes," Ace agreed and added, "Wait, is it dark? Is that a thing that happens? I thought it was lunch." "I'm starving." Clem pushed himself with great difficulty onto his elbows. "Oh shit, it's dark. It's like night." "Oh fuck, we are in trouble. We missed dinner. We missed archery. They're gonna fucking kill us." A's eyes were huge and he frantically shoved things into his bag. "We have to come up with a story. Clint, look at me. We gotta get our story straight." "Ask your king," Clint offered, trying to pull himself up on shaky legs. "I pardon you." "How the fuck did that not kill your buzz? We are gonna get sent home. You can't just fuck off half a day." "Kill my buzz?" Clint's head was fuzzy, and the starlight made it difficult to see. Overhead, both moons drifted in sync, and he stared at them until Az's voice broke through his trance. "Clint, come on, now. We have to make it back before lights out, or we are even more fucked." He was standing by the horses, holding both set of reins, and Clint realized from the tone in his voice that something important was happening. He moved as quickly as he could, but he felt as if he were in a trance. Ace boosted him onto the saddle and climbed onto his horse, galloping full speed back towards their sleeping quarters. They didn't make it far before they were met by a battalion of guards. Real guards, adults, in full armor with real weapons. Some were on horseback, but all held lanterns and appeared to be frantic. Their equestrian instructor was with them, in full armor, but Clinton recognized her even under the helmet. He had always been good at reading people, and her body language was unmistakable. "What's going on?" Ace tried to ask, but halfway through his sentence he was jerked unmercifully from his horse and dumped into a pile of limbs on the ground. "There he is!" One of the guards pointed at Clint and he slowly dismounted, holding the reins to lead his horse over to the commotion. "Good. We found him before the Queen found out he was missing." Clint watched in amazement as the two guards who had just thrown him down pulled Ace up by the shoulders. He looked horrified and confused. He didn't know what position they wanted him in and was trying to limply let them lead him. "Do you know," one of the guards asked him, "how bad you messed up? What you nearly cost all of us?" Clint let go of the bridle and stepped forward as the other guard wrenched both of Ace's arms behind his back and kicked his legs, forcing him to kneel. The boy cried out in pain as he hit the ground hard. "Ace?" Clint asked, and realized that he was drawing his sword. At the sound of metal on metal, the sound of the sacred sword leaving its sheath, the guards froze. Clint stood in the battle stance he had been trained to take, and tried to hold it perfectly as he felt every set of eyes bore into him. His horse came to stand behind him, perhaps sensing his tension, and he was thankful that at least someone there had his back. "What's going on?" he asked, looking at his teacher. "Put the sword away," she said, but her voice shook. "They're going to hurt him, Master," a voice in his head explained. "Just like they were going to hurt Xandra. You can't trust these people. You shouldn't be here." "You're going to hurt him," he accused, and his eyes were wild. "He's going home, Clint. He'd asserted his responsibilities." "So did I!" he screamed, but he hadn't meant to. "They're going to hurt you too, Master," the voice explained, and it made perfect sense. "He stole royal property," she continued. "What did I steal?" Ace asked from his position on the ground. "The sacred sword," she continued, never moving her eyes from Clint, her voice cold. But Clint's voice and his entire body shook. "It's mine. It's mine. I had it. They're going to hurt him," the voice said. "They already hurt him. If they kill him and you refuse to act, it will be your fault, Master. This is all your fault. You can't trust them. You cannot trust mortals. You are not one of them. You shouldn't be here. I stole the queen's whore, right? Ace jerked his head up to glare at her. Watch your mouth, boy, she warned. Why? You're gonna kill me anyway, Ace glared. Let me die with dignity. They're going to kill him, Master. Teenagers are so dramatic. One of the guards laughed. The teacher glared at him. Are you blind? That boy took out the king's personal guardsman when he was 10 years old. He swept through the rebels like it was nothing. Guardsman? The guard who had laughed stepped back, clinking in his armor. I thought everyone thought, she hissed. That boy is a weapon looking for a target. Any target. She turned back to Clin. Clin, put your sword away. We aren't going to hurt you or your friend. Liar! Clin screamed in time with the voice in his head, and his body shook. His arms and legs were weak. You've gone too far. If she catches you now, she'll kill you. Sacrifice the boy. Kill them all, Master. Save yourself. No! Clin screamed, and let go to press his right hand to his forehead. Get out of my head! Leave me alone! Shit, Ace said, and one of the guards pressed him to the ground by the throat. Clin? The teacher took off her helmet and watched the sacred boy take a step back into his horse, losing his battle stance and forgetting how to hold his sword to strike. You're not in trouble. We were worried about you. She turned to the rest of the guards. Let him up, you idiots! They moved, and Ace spit the dirt from his mouth and pushed himself on shaky arms. He looked around to make sure he was allowed to stand before he actually tried to pull himself together and make it to his feet. One of the guards pushed him, and he stumbled towards Clin. He had to grab onto his shoulder to keep himself upright, and a bolt of pain shot through him. He jumped back, and Clin turned to face him to see the fear in his eyes. I'm sorry, Clin told him, and the hand that wasn't holding the sword was pulling at his own hair. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He kept repeating it as the adults looked at each other, then at Clin, who had started to cry in front of everyone like a child. The embarrassment pulled within him, and the voice in his head told him that he was letting these people make a fool out of him. He had let them break his stance. He had let them hurt his friend. The only way to regain his dignity was to strike them all down, to erase this event from the memory of the world. Stop it! He cried and fumbled, trying to get the sword back in the sheath. Clin? Ace asked. Don't talk to me! He snapped. Then, to the adults, don't look at me! He grabbed Ace by the wrist and yanked, and the two of them walked back to the stables with the crowd parting to let them through. Clin? Ace asked again as Clin opened the stall to let his horse inside. Clin, that hurts. You're hurting me. Clin let go of him and slammed the stall shut, and began to undress his horse, thinking about the fear on the faces of the adults who had trained their entire lives to fight. They were afraid of him, because he was a murderer, because he was a monster. Don't look at me, he hissed, and Ace kept looking at him from his position on the other side of the stall. The mare whinnied and nuzzled her face into Clin's chest. He hugged her and finally broke down properly, convulsing with the sobs that had threatened to spill out during the confrontation. Clin. Ace jerked his head to the door to see the guard standing there, waiting on them to leave. Tell them to go away, Clin said into the mare's fur. Tell them that if they don't go away, I'll give them something to be scared of. Come on, don't make me do that. Ace kept staring at the door. They got real weapons, Clin. So do I, he hissed, and Ace stepped away from the stall. You have to get that sword away from him, the captain was telling the teacher. But I don't know how. The queen won't like it, but it should be stored in the castle. I don't want him here, she answered. He's a prodigy, but all my students are afraid of him. He's destroying this unit. I can't sacrifice an entire class for one soldier. He should be privately trained. It's only 2 more years until he can apprentice, the captain replied. If I can convince the queen to get him to keep that sword in her armory at the castle, he won't be dangerous. He's dangerous because he's dangerous, the teacher glared. Not because of any magical sword. That boy is crazy. The other children can sense it. His bunkmates say that he talks in his sleep, that he hears voices. The weight of his responsibilities is crippling him. You can't keep him around normal children. He is the avatar of a god. Theseus chose that child, so he should be at the temple, not here. Hey, Aziz said, because he didn't think the situation warranted an excuse me. Clint says that he'll come out if the guards leave. When the guards continued to stare at him instead of leaving, he continued, "He's pretty pissed off. He told me to tell you that he'd kill you all if you didn't leave, but I didn't want to say that because I didn't want to say that." The teacher glared at them. The captain stared at Ace for some time, then looked up to see Clint in the stall, cleaning his horse's hooves. He put a hand on Ace's shoulder and looked into his eyes. "Your networking skills are amazing, boy," he said and squeezed. Ace glared at him and the captain went on, "Made a hell of an ally, didn't ya? Bet nobody's gonna touch you now." He patted his shoulder and turned back to the teacher. "Try not to lose him again." He raised a hand and the unit began to disperse. As soon as they were out of sight, she turned on him. "Don't think that you've gotten yourself any special treatment, boy," she explained. "You're both being held in solitary tonight, and in the morning you are being punished. And I don't want to hear any of your 'my boyfriend will beat you up' bullshit like you tried to pull on the guards. You're lucky to be alive. Clint!" she called with venom in her voice. "You're in solitary tonight." He stuck his head up from the stall and dried his eyes on his sleeve. He nodded. After a few seconds, he collected his things and joined them by the door. "I'm sorry," he said. "I thought that they were going to hurt us. I won't ever talk to anyone else. This is my fault. I'm sorry." He took a deep breath. "I'm sorry I'm here at all. I know it's messed up everybody. I'll just see if I can not come back. If Sandra will let me just do something else." The instructor stared down at the boy with the slumped shoulders who looked as if he was about to cry and chose her words carefully before she spoke. "Clint, you learn quickly. You usually do everything that is asked of you. You're a good student and you will be an amazing soldier. But you will not skip class. You will not take yourself anywhere where you will be unsupervised. You will not scare us like that." "I'm sorry," he said again and stared at the floor. "Both of you are in solitary," she said. "Don't even go to your bunks. Don't bring anything. Go straight to the shed."